Hi, guys, this is Miss Ladd, and I come to you now with a very shortened version of the Traversals Explore lecture. So, here's our daily question. How do we move through a list? We've done this 2 days in a row now. You should know the answer by now. It says to put this on a scrap piece of paper or a sticky note. I have plenty of those. Let me know if you need one. But you'll want to write down this list. So far attempts equals, and you can write it down just by hand, nice and easy. So if I want to know if a particular value is in the list, I would probably just look at that list and see, hey, can I find this item? Right? If there's a lot of items, it might be harder. If there are a few items, it would be easier for me as a human, right? So you just scan your list until you find the right one. Now, computers are really good at checking things one by one through the use of a for loop or even a while loop. In this case, we're going to demonstrate this through a for loop. As I've mentioned before, I love for loops because all of the pieces are there in one spot. I don't have to go find where the incrementer is, that I plus plus. I don't have to go find where I has been established. None of that stuff. It's all right there in a convenient, easy for me to read spot. Starting value of the counter, right? So I've seen this I represent initializer because, like, this is how we start. Initializing is just a fancy word for starting. I've seen it also as incrementer because I plus plus, we increment by one each time. Here we have I is less than list.length. This is the condition. If it's true, then we keep running the code. If it's not, then we stop. I for index is also a really good way to remember what that I represents. So this Boolean expression, true or false, if it's true, run the code in the curly braces. If it's false, then stop. That's it. So we're just going to keep going through this loop until we reach the end of our list. Done. What they want you to think about now is instead of the word list, right, our list has the name of temps. We're going to replace it with temps. So here we can see var I equals 0, as long as I is less than the length of to the temps array or list, keep iterating through that list. This comes after the loop runs. So after we've done this code in the middle, that I will then get incremented and added to. All right, so let's kind of see how this works. To access each element in the list, this little square brackets, see whenever you see square brackets, think list or array. And this I is going to be whatever the value of I currently is. So the first time we go through the list, it's going to be 0. The second time we go through the list, because we have to add 1 to it, it's going to be 1, right? So 0 plus 1 is 1, etc., etc., etc. So we'll talk about this as we kind of go through this process. So here is our for loop. Right now, it doesn't really do much of anything. Like I said, we'll start at 0 is 0. Basically, our I here has a value of 0. Is it less than the length of our list? Yes, it is. Then we do this, and then we increment the letter I. We're going to store temps 0 into the variable element. All right. So right now it's 0. Here's our indices. So 0 is 77. So it's going to be this value. Element is going to equal 77 because element equals our array name temps at the 0 index. So it grabs that item and stores it in the variable called element. All right. Then it's going to increment. So now I is equal to 1. So here's our I value. I now equals 1. What's the 1 index of temps? It's 85. So now 85 is being stored in the element variable. Okay. Then we increment again. Now here we are at 2. It's just going to keep going down that list all the way, right? So 0, 1, 2. We're now on this thing. 89, right? Next time it goes through, it's been incremented to 3. What happens here? We get the value of 65. And then it increments one more time. It's going to check, is 4 less than 4? Yes, because this is how many items we have in the list. List.length is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. List.length is 4. So is 4, so the value of I is 4. Is 4 less than 4? No, it is not. So it fails, and we exit out of the loop. So this is how loops work. So we're able to access each item in a list by using a for loop. We can do the same thing with a while loop. We can do this with pretty much any loop. This pattern, this is called a traversal. It's basically when we move from one element to another, to another, to another. So let's take a look at this. We're going to try to look for a number in the temps list, and we're going to write it down. Yeah, you don't have to write it down on the sticky note if you don't want to, but having that list next to you is going to make this a little bit easier to see. All right, so your sticky note, we're going to run the loop till it's finished, and then our console can be a scrap piece of paper if we want to do that. But here it is, right? First time we go through the loop, oops. First time we go through, right? If element is equal to 85, that's the value we're looking for. Which element in the list has the value of 85? So that's that second item. So it's not there because the first item is 77. Then this must be 85. And then the other two, it doesn't have that value. So same thing here. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to still go through that list, that array of numbers that we have, and we're going to find the smallest number in that list. Now, mind you, a list of 4 items is not going to be hard for us to find the smallest item. But if it's a list of 1,000 numbers, well, then something like this can be very beneficial. So, once to find the smallest number, right, we're going to leave the baggies behind. I left them behind long ago. Scrap pieces of paper are always good. And then I'll post a video on how to make a trace chart. Trace charts are useful in these situations, especially when you have to track a lot of variables. So here's our global variable out here. So var min equals temps 0. That's where we start. So temps 0, here's our temps list. Temps 0 is 77. So we're immediately going to set min to 77. Okay. Again, we're going to go through the loop. So we're at 0, right? Second time we go through, is 77 less than 77? No. So we're going to skip over this code. Let's go back. Where were we? Okay. So we're going to skip over this code. Okay. So right now, min is equal to 77. Got it? Now, here it's going to go back through. We're now on I now equals 1, right? So we are here. Is 85 less than 77? No. So we're not going to reset the value of min. Okay? See, 85 less than 77. That doesn't work. That's not true. We're not going to do this code. Oops. So is 85 less than 77? No, it is not. So we're not going to do this code right here. We're going to skip over it. This is not true. It does not, it's not something we need to worry about. Okay, next time we go through. Our value of I is now 2. Is 89 less than 77? So 89 less than 77? No, that is not true. So we're going to skip over this piece of code. Last but not least, our I is now worth 3. 3 is 65. Is 65 less than 77? So here's our element, that's 65. Our min has a current value of 77 on it. Is 65 less than 77? Yes, you bet it is. So now our min is going to be set with the value of 65. We're going to increment to one more after all this is said and done. I is now worth 4. Is basically 4, the value of I, less than 4, the value of temps.length? No. So the loop stops. So the big thing that we can take from this is that any list may be accessed by its index. We can access each individual element of a list through its index. So you just name the name of the list, square brackets, the name of the index value that you want to get out of that list, and then that's the value. That's pretty cool. And this is going to work really well, like with actually the last lesson where we just basically accessed that index through a random number, right? Said, hey, let's get this random number and let's get its value and output it to make our icons look different. So let's see here. Once we know the element at each spot in the list, we can do different things. So we can filter. We can reduce down to a single element, just like we did now with the smallest number. So the traversal is the process of accessing each item in a list over one at a time, usually done through a loop. I can't really think of a better process to do that because a loop basically takes out that kind of the hard coding for us. And what I mean by hard coding is let's say I know that an array has 4 items in it, and I can just access that list one at a time. I don't have to write a loop for it. I could just do, oh, well, I know it's 4, so I can just, access each item in the list and store it in a variable. But that's more work than I really need. A loop saves me time, energy, and effort. Let me know if you have any questions. If you need any help, please come and ask me. And I'll talk to you then. Happy coding, everyone.